The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Jason Kreutz. Jason is the founder, CEO, and Chief Data Officer at Assurance Health Data. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jason, let's start with yourself, please. Could you give us a bit of an overview of your own background within technology and your journey from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to today as the founder and CEO at Assurance Health Data?
I guess we go back to college and, university. I mean, prior to that, I'm a steel town kid that grew up in Southern Illinois. And then I went to school for, of all things, civil and environmental engineering with an emphasis in hydro systems, and figured out that maybe I didn't want to be in a windowless lab because the water labs are windowless, and started interviewing with a bunch of different companies everywhere literally from Goldman Sachs to the Peace Corps and everything in between. And this was in the early 2000s. So some of the companies that were pretty aggressive with recruiting me were in the high tech field. So I made the transition from being a civil engineer and with a focus in hydro systems to coming over to big tech. So I actually took a job with IBM out of college and went through their global sales school and transitioned from being an engineer to going into being a professional salesperson, and was with IBM for, 18 years and held a bunch of different roles. And towards the tail end, and what led over to where I'm at right now is I was working pretty heavily within the precision medicine world and advanced data and analytics as it pertains to health. So for IBM, I led a lot of our work in the US from a systems perspective within the healthcare and life sciences space. So think large providers, large health systems, as well as diagnostic companies and some of the pharma companies. And as well as IBM at the time had a group called Watson Health, where we'd spent a large amount of money acquiring different companies to pull together data from some of these. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the folks to help integrate Merge, which was the medical imaging side. So that's really, in a nutshell, that prior to Assurance Health Data, and really part of the reason why I left to start my own thing was seeing a need to really do things differently in regards to sharing data within the healthcare and life sciences space.
Well, thank you for that, Jason. It's great to learn about your background, how you found yourself working in an industry, and then you saw an opportunity to create something new, which leads nicely then into the formation of Assurance Health Data. So tell us about what you noticed early on. What was the gap and how you created Assurance Health Data and what your mission is with the business?
Yeah, ultimately, what we're passionate about and what I'm passionate about is taking the luck out of discovery and diagnosis. We've seen in other industries that getting access to data is much easier than what it is in our industry. And there are certain considerations, obviously, around privacy and certain laws that we have in the US, and of course, GDPR over Europe. But I found that it was really difficult working with some of these large health systems to enable data sharing, even if it was within their own organization. And then it was really difficult for some of the diagnostic clients and the pharma clients to get access to privacy protected and preserved data from patients to help them either come up with new tests or therapies, or to ensure that their tests and therapies were working as prescribed and, were meeting the quality and safety standards of the organizations like the FDA. So that was the real aha for me, is there's difficulty at a macro scale for sharing of data between these different organizations. And then from a personal perspective, both from my father, who had late stage prostate cancer and generally is a slow growing cancer, but in his case, it wasn't. And then On the other end of the opposite of a prevalent disease is Lay's syndrome, which is the disease that my nephew has. Personally and professionally, I became obsessed with how do we make data sharing easy? How do we eliminate some of the barriers that exist, eliminate the data silos, the data fragmentation, and again, just make data sharing easy, became the mantra of how do we do this? So that's ultimately why I left IBM. And there's a prominent academic medical center that we initially worked with and branched out from there and working at an industry level to make this data sharing much easier to do.
So walk us through the journey then from when you first decided to launch Assurance Health Data from the early steps, creating a proof of concept, a go-to-market strategy, getting access to the various data sets, and talk to us about it, Assurance Data Health in its current form, where you are today, some of the successes that you've had in tackling this pretty complex problem.
When we first launched, we started with a base of existing relationships and expertise that we had with large academic medical centers. So again, these are the large health systems that are attached to and collaborate with large university, including the former CEO of Vanderbilt University Medical Center that joined us and believes in the cause. What we started with was working with them, to have a platform that could combine different research clinical data sets, but B, leveraging the emerging market around real world data and real world evidence with mainly pharma, biotech, and some of the diagnostic clients. And what we did is, I guess, a lesson to be learned early on in Assurance Health Data. We thought that we were going to be a platform that was going to virtualize all the research data sets out there. What we learned was coming with a bit more of a pragmatic and cohort specific. So a set of patients that have a set of specific common characteristics to have it more of a bite-sized, smaller project allowed us to grow very quickly from, one or two academic medical centers to well over 10 within a matter of a few quarters. And that's how we really got started and really started to grow, was when we were able to pull together some of these different institutions to agree to allow us to find opportunities for their de-identified data sets. And some of the early wins for that for us were we partner very closely with a company called Nashville Biosciences, which is a spin out of Vanderbilt University Medical Center and Vanderbilt University. And we worked very closely with them, mainly with biopharma and biotech, to find patients, de-identified data on patients that are very cohort specific. So their data scientists can find certain signals in the data. And we're doing that same process with other prominent academic medical centers. And recently, we've also added some community health systems as well to the mix. And really what we're doing right now, again, the whole mantra is to make data sharing easy, is we're pulling together what we're calling the AHD Research Network to allow different health systems, both academic medical centers and community health systems, to participate together. For the focus of Assurance Health Data is really the difficult to obtain data, and as well as the data that goes beyond what is really a commodity data set in our market claims, and summary level information from the EMRs to really deep data sets that include not only the EMR data, but genetic, and specialty lab data, as well as imaging data, and pulling together that data, not only from Vanderbilt, but from a number of other institutions that we're not at liberty to discuss their name.
Focusing now on the technology side that allows you to pull in all this data, piece it all together, gain some analysis and insights from it. Can you describe how you and the team have got to this point? What aspects of AI, data science, data engineering are required to get it all together? And how does the companies that you're partnering with support and use the platform?
Yeah. At the current state that we're at with the platform, we are in an early version, right? So it would not be accurate for me to say that we're doing advanced data science, advanced AI. At the stage of the company that we're at right now, we're pulling together, these various systems and pulling them on individual projects with the goal to pull them together into a single OMOP type of framework. At this time, what we're doing is we're pulling together the data for our clients' data sciences teams to leverage their data science expertise. In the future, we do see the capability to do some more advanced AI on the data that we're pulling together, but we're definitely early in the stage of our company.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
I want to spend some time now talking about where you see the impact of what you're building with Assurance. What are some of you think will be the most common uses of bringing this data together and centralized? What are the main benefits, and why has there been such a challenge in getting it done previously?
Let's start with the challenge, right? Really, what I've seen back when I was at IBM, not because of IBM, but because of what was going on in the industry, is it really wasn't a technological barrier that kept us from being able to share data. What it was in the industry was a lack of trust. So, by design, we are a trusted data exchange. And what does that mean? That means that we do not take ownership of any of the assets. We merely enable data sharing for people that we are granted license to their data in order to share it with people that want to have use of that data. What we're working on is different use cases where, having a health system that I mentioned as examples, but we also have other use cases where it's patient advocacy groups or other data owners that want to work with us for us to find use cases where they can make use of that data. So one particular area that we're working in right now is in the non-small cell lung cancer. So traditionally, back in the day, you'd get some summary information from the EMR, but both diagnostic clients as well as therapeutic companies are wanting much greater detail on how certain patients are responding to immunotherapy. So that's part of the work that we've been doing as a single use case. So a couple of different things that can occur from that. One is clearly if a pharma client is understanding how their drug is being utilized within a particular system, that can help them from a commercial effectiveness, right? For example, patients typically, their doctors adhere to guidelines for their specific type of cancer, both upon the staging and other characteristics. What if we're able to help a client and help a system figure out patients that have fallen off of those guidelines and tease into that and investigate what are some of the reasons, and are there ways to tell patients that maybe should go back to the guidelines, adhere to that with the help of their physicians. As example, this is for therapeutics that are already on market, but we're also working with some other clients that I can't get into too many details because they have new products that they're bringing to market, where we can use that same information again on a de-identified basis, protecting the privacy of the patients, for them to develop algorithms that can see certain nuances within the data coming from the EMR, from the lab, from the omics, and from the imaging. Again, for say, for example, non-small cell lung cancer patients. And of course, I can't go into too much further in that because that may disclose what some of these companies are working on. And then you can also do that into another area that we're very active in is in the neurospace, right? So there's a company that we work very closely with called Beacon Biosignals. So they're a company out of Boston, and they've developed some algorithms that are able to look at EEGs and determine patients that have Alzheimer's, as well as what the subtyping is. And with Alzheimer's, one of the issues is A, finding out that a patient has it early enough, and B, being able to subtype to the type of Alzheimer's that they have, to where you can get a therapeutic to them early enough to be able to have a positive impact. So there's that use case. But the additional use case with that is, what if we can use that platform and help Beacon have additional data, improve the algorithms to where then they can actually work with researchers and pharma for new signals and new therapeutics for, in this particular case, Alzheimer's, but we're working with them in other indications as well. So those are a few use cases that we're really excited about. And some of the other use cases coming down the pike is This has been all de-identified data, right? Where we see the future is with some of the advancements that we've had from a regulatory perspective in the US, in particular to the 21st Century Cures Act, is where a patient has the right to access of all their data. So we are building out the capability with a couple different partners where patients will be able to consent on our platform and we can obtain with their consent and by their request, all their medical records from wherever they receive care, not just from a single institution. And that's where, as a patient advocate, I'm getting really excited about some of the possibilities and some of the projects that we're working on to leverage patient consent to trust to get a much higher quality, richer, deeper data set that goes across the patient's entire medical history, not just a moment in time at a particular health system.
Jason, I want to now get your perspective on what the road ahead looks like, not just for Assurance Health Data, but this industry as a whole. You're obviously tackling a problem which has long been spoken about and is very complex in nature, just given the disjointed data across multiple hospitals and healthcare systems. When you look at the next year to 2 years for Assurance Health Data, what are some of the things that you're working towards? What's going to be important for you in the business, and what are you excited about for the next chapter of your journey?
So, not only for us, but for the industry, the capability for health systems, both independently and collectively, as part of some of these networks that have emerged, there's going to be a greater amount of data that is no longer locked behind the silos, these great institutions that do really great work. My primary mission in life for the last 3 years, 4 years, has been working with these different institutions to help them with a path to bring their data to greater use, right? To allow researchers beyond their institution and even researchers in pharma and biotech greater access to this data. So you're seeing the work that we're doing, you're also seeing with other networks out there where not only are we going to be bringing data out of places like Vanderbilt, but we will have publicly a much broader network that researchers, both in academia and within industries like pharma and biotech, will be able to access really deep longitudinal data sets that are not available without a company like AHD. But as well, what we see occurring, and there's a few of us that have been pretty vocal in the industry about this, is really this concept of patient, the access and patient ownership of their data. There's been talk about it in our industry, but the regulations are finally at a point in some of the technology that exists out there from companies such as Particle Health to enable us to utilize the exchanges to pull together a really deep record with the patient's consent that has not been before. Typically, a patient, say a cancer patient, is going to receive care across as many as 8 to 12 or even more different institutions and offices, each with their own data silos, with data that is locked there. And what we're able to do is we're able to pull that data together in a very cohesive and structured way. We're patient mediated, right? Patient at the center. And as we've seen in other industries where, this B2C versus what's really been going in our industry is B2B, we really feel that's going to unlock some unique new use cases for data as well as for overall health. So we're working with some diagnostic clients, with some patient advocacy groups, and we will very likely have the capability and have an offering in the future for patients to be able to consent for us to structure their records. And again, our view is our job, even prior to working directly with patients, is to just be a vehicle that allows data sharing to occur. We're not taking ownership of any assets. And we have the capability on a instance by instance, keep tracking of data and how it's being used, where it's being used, to where people trust the system. And we view that not only Assurance Health Data, but the industry, you're going to see some new players that are going to pop up probably in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months that are going to focus solely on that direct to patient for patients to be able to have full control of their data. And we're really, really excited about what's going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months in our industry, where we actually, for the first time, put patients at the center of data.
Amazing, amazing. Final question from me then, Jason. Speaking to an audience of data professionals, whether it be analytics, data science, data engineers who buy into your mission and understand the impact it can have, as you continue to grow the business, at some point you're going to need to scale the technology side. What future positions do you anticipate needing to hire for in the technology team? And when speaking to candidates about assurance health data and the work, what would you tell candidates to get them excited about potentially working with you over some of the other great opportunities available to them?
Yeah, clearly data engineers and data architects are going to be key for us as we pull together a pretty complex matrix of all these different data sources and ensuring that when a data provider or data owner or someone that has access to a data license, in addition to patients, that we're able to keep track of that data all the time. So that isn't a simple task, but it's something that we major in. So engineers and architects with expertise in that area, we will definitely be adding. And that creates a base layer of data. And the other part of that is, in particular within our industry, is interoperability. So interoperability is still, in my opinion, in a nascent state. So it's really going to be twofold. One is working with the existing standards, but also interfacing with the standards bodies to ensure that, again, with the mindset of pulling together large amounts of data from disparate sources and all these existing data silos, how do we leverage interoperability within our industry and advance that to achieve the mission that we have, not only for assurance health data, but for the industry? Those are key areas. And again, that creates a base layer on top of that. And then we'll need some experts that can look at those relationships and come up with new data products based upon the matrix of data that we have access to within our network, not only for assurance health data, but also for our clients that are on the network, essentially creating additional applications and data products on top of the network platform that we built.
Jason, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. Great to learn about the origin story behind assurance health data from your own background working in the space. It's a fascinating field that you're working in. We're privileged here. We get to speak to a lot of companies who are working within the life sciences, health tech space, and we know the impact that your work can have. We wish you, the team, and everyone at Assurance Health Data the best of luck in the months and years to come. And we look forward to having you back on the show in a year or two and hear how things are going. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.